When winter comes to Montana, snowstorms and cold bear down for months. But for some, winter is a season like any other. You just have to be ready to face it. Rick and Casey are big game hunters. Tracking wild animals has become second nature.
Good boy, Cash.
Scott Clark is a trapper and a fisherman. He followed the footsteps of his father, Jerry, and he knows the Madison Valley like no one else. Scott and Susie have learned to face the most difficult conditions. They're the only ones to live all winter in the brutal Big Hole Valley. The Whites and the Hollenbecks have their ranches to run and animals to feed. Many animals to feed. Jenny is a sled dog breeder and an outstanding competitor. Her team is one of the best in the state. Welcome to Montana, the land of the Western pioneers.
Nothing like a fresh morning in the mountains.
There's another one right there.
Got a good one. Swim right here. Boom, got him.
Good boy, Cat.
Woo! Woo!
Montana is one of the most famous places to hunt in the United States. It boasts some of the best shooters and animal trackers in the country. In winter, when hunting season is officially closed, only a few hunters are granted permits to venture into the mountains. They must stick to the strict quotas set by the authorities. Near the village of Two Dot, on the Whites family's ranch, Rick and Harrison obtained a special license to cull 2 female elk from the herd on the ranch lands. In recent years, the number of elk has seriously increased. They feed at the cattle grazing areas and deplete the resources.
We've got about 4,200 elk in this herd. There's really only enough feed for about 1,500, so we're 2,500 over what can be sustainable here. If we can't make a living and make this sustainable, we're gonna be gone, you know.
There was at least 200 here the other day in this pocket. I don't see a thing.
The 2 hunters have spent several days trying to locate the herd, but the conditions are not in their favor.
You know, with this wind blowing 40 miles an hour there's not an elk in the world going to be out in the open.
A strong wind and unusually warm winter temperatures caused the elk to stay hidden in the trees.
At that point, the wind was blowing so hard you couldn't hardly stand up.
That's blowing right in our face right here.
It was just brutal conditions.
Well, they could be anywhere.
Fucking wind. In the first 3 days, we covered a lot of ground, looked at a lot of different areas for elk. We basically hunted one end of the ranch to the other, which was basically probably 8 miles. We set up in places where we knew elk were there. As the elk didn't show up,
Despite their efforts, Rick and Harrison can't get a good shot. But in Montana, the weather can change on a dime. And after 3 fruitless days, the hunters can count on a new ally, the cold. A storm hit the region. Temperatures plunged to 30 below, and with it, about 20 inches of fresh snow. For the two hunters, it's game on.
When the temperature gets below zero, they need food in their belly to keep them warm.
You don't have any choice but to start coming out of the trees and eating and drinking water and being visible again.
This morning, Rick and Harrison head to a part of the ranch where elk might come to feed.
I think right on top of that.
The animals prefer these vast open spaces.
Yeah.
Harrison is in charge of tracking. As the blizzard intensifies, he must approach as discreetly as he possibly can.
We left the pickups over on the other side of that ridge, and we're going towards those big towers over there, but I don't want to walk across this open basin, so we found this little coulee to walk down to keep us a little better concealed, and we're gonna go look into a drainage over there and see if we can see anything. Might be something up there. It's hard to tell in all the snow. Some brush and some dirt. Scopes are icing up and shit. Things are extra fresh today. I peeked over this ridge and I don't see anything. Visibility's only a little more than a quarter mile each way, so I was gonna bring the pickup over here so we can cover all this country a lot faster. But the way this wind's blowing, we're gonna have to start at that end and work our way this way so the wind doesn't bust us if there's anything down here. So I'm gonna take a brisk walk back to the wheels and try something else.
No elk in sight, but Rick and Harrison are confident. And the hunt continues. In the Big Hole Valley on the border with Idaho, trapper Scott Olson spent the day in the forest.
I actually was going over in the woods to see future trapping areas for next year's trap line when a furry little lump against the river kind of caught my eye. I couldn't tell from where I was at what it was, but it was intriguing, something out of place. It basically looked like a crime scene. Something had happened violently there. There were bits and pieces of fur with all the dark snow around of the blood that had been let off. Obviously, an animal had died.
It only takes a few seconds for Scott to identify the animal killed near the river.
I could see where he had come out of the hole of the river, so therefore it was a water animal. The fur looked like beaver. It smelled like beaver. The feet looked like beaver. And probably the best giveaway moment was just taking off a piece of meat and biting it. It had the taste of a beaver. When you come upon an animal that's been killed in the woods, very seldom is it all in one unit. Usually there's bits and pieces of it all around. Because each animal, due to its size and its characteristic, will do certain things to the carcass. If a wolf had come on this, the carcass would have been gone. This one had been picked over by other animals. It was kind of scattered there, and the small bits and pieces of meat that were left would still be scavenged by other smaller birds. I wondered what had killed this animal and taken the big part of the body away.
Just by analyzing the traces left at the scene, Experience tells Scott the story of what happened here.
There's a lot of bird tracks around here. We've got a eagle foot. So an eagle was here, which is the king of the birds. You could see where the birds would grab a piece of meat and then actually go away from the carcass a little bit so they'd be alone while they were eating. And there was a place over in the soft snow that you could see where a large winged bird had actually hit the snow as he was trying to lift off again, being scared by other birds. Now, for a large bird to be scared means there was something bigger coming in. So as I looked at that, I was able to see that there was a small little tuft of a black down feather. That would have been a crow or a raven. And right across, maybe 10 feet away, were the tracks of the eagle where the eagle had landed. So that told me the eagle came in, the crow and raven were scared, being lower on the food chain, and they lifted off, hitting their wings in the snow and leaving that little tuft of feather. So I knew that's what had been there.
Other clues enable Scott to guess which animal killed the beaver.
Whatever animal it was dragging parts of this down the hole, because we see a lot of blood around the hole. And I look across the river and I can see a hole over there with a slide, and that is indicative of an otter. And an otter is a ferocious meat eater. A lot of fish they like to eat in the winter. If they catch the beaver out of the water, then the beaver is very vulnerable. They don't move real fast. So then he got attacked by the otter. The battle ensued. Beaver suffered the loss. The birds came in as the referees and said, "We'll clean up your act." Nature is a cruel taskmaster. Things happen violently out there. It's just one big circle, a circle of life. What is bad for one animal is good for others. Rather than just let it go to waste, I'm going to try to salvage what I can off of here, because I'd like that animal not to have died in vain. And there's always something that I can gain off of here, perhaps a tail or some claws off of the feet.
It's time to go to Scott Olson's workshop, because the trapper is also an artist recognized throughout the region for his creations inspired by Indian traditions, and these few beaver remains will be useful to him. Further north, the city of Great Falls is getting ready for a great weekend of rodeo. This is the setting for the season finals. After 8 months of competition and 35 rodeos organized throughout Montana, the 12 best cowboys in the state will compete for 3 days. Among them on the circuit is Henry Hollenbeck, nicknamed Hank. He's here with his wife Sarah and his son Rhett. Henry is one of the oldest on the circuit, but one of the best and most respected. He's won the all-around title for the last 2 years.
Being the all-around guy, it's kind of interesting because you're just the guy that can do it all, and there's not a lot of cowboys that do that. Every year he thinks he needs to retire or something because he's getting too old, but then he goes and wins everything.
Come here. Stuff changes and gets faster, and horses get better, and you just gotta go with it. Stay with it.
What a talent. What a talent. Number 1 in the year.
But this year is special for Henry. Usually his favorite event is the tie-down roping. It involves catching a calf with a rope and tying 3 of its legs. But now, at the end of the regular season, he finished first in steer wrestling, scoring enough points to put him in reach of the winner's circle. The test consists of grabbing a steer with his bare hands and flipping it as quickly as possible.
Steers, they usually weigh between 500 and 650, 4 times your body weight. But part of it in steer wrestling is leverage. You got the horns and you got to leverage the different points of contact to bend the steer and take the advantage away from it. You got to be patient, but quick enough to make the right moves. You really lever down and be patient, and when you feel their weakness, that's when you get the nose and man versus beast. They hurt every once in a while. I mean, I got a lot of scars across my belly, but if you do it right, you shouldn't get hurt, but you know, there's always the possibility.
On the eve of the first round, the champions evaluate the steers they'll compete with.
You just kind of look at their frame size, and like this #1 steer is supposed to be a little bit pushier, but he'd still be a good steer. And maybe have a little more action to him.
Come here.
For a few hours out of sight, the steers are tested to ensure they're competition ready.
We had a little discrepancy on the last one, and then the one that ran down the fence and tipped the guy over. We ran him back one more time just to kind of show him who's boss. It was a good little practice, but get your blood flowing and get you thinking about it. What's kind of difficult about the steer wrestling is you kind of only have one shot. Once you leave the chute and you're coming up on the steer, you can't just keep running around. You got one shot from one end of the arena to the other end of the arena.
He's gotta get some money. He's gotta get some money.
If Henry completes his 3 rounds this weekend, he'll not only retain his title of all-around champion, but he could also earn his first steer wrestling championship, a true institution in Montana.
With the finals, the rounds pay, I think, $2,300, $2,400, and then on down, and then the average pays $3,600, I think, was the average to win that. So there's a lot of money on the. And that's why it's worth making it to the finals and doing well, because you can win a lot of money.
In the big arena of Great Falls, everything is ready for the season to end in style. On with the show.
Well, it's pretty good unless I look down.
100 miles south near the small town of Livingston, Jenny Rodewig breeds sled dogs. Montana's sled dog competitions are legendary. Jenny, just 23 years old, is already one of the most famous mushers in the state. She was just a toddler when her father, Rob, an experienced musher, started taking her on the treks. This year, Jenny is getting ready for the famous Race to the Sky, Montana's largest dog sled competition, now only 15 days away.
Soldier, come here.
Jenny won this race in 2014, but this year she's giving herself a challenge. She's chosen a very special young dog to lead her pack. In a litter of 3 born on Memorial Day, he was the only puppy to survive. Jenny named him Soldier to pay tribute to fallen American troops.
He was a fighter and born on that day, so I figured Soldier was a fitting name. But when he was about 8 weeks old, I noticed something was wrong with the way he moved and the way he ran, and just something didn't look right with his rear legs. He basically didn't have a hip joint on his one leg that didn't develop. But I decided that, you know, he was such a happy puppy and he had a great personality. So I decided, well, we're gonna continue on. And when he was about 6 months old, I put him in harness for the first time. And it was just, it was like, I mean, he was born to do it. Soldier was definitely a born leader.
Given Soldier's exceptional qualities, Jenny held off training him until he was grown. Soldier now has a hip prosthesis, a unique case for a dog destined to lead a pack in competition.
Get him, get him. Good girl, get him. There's nothing up there.
To hone his leadership skills, Soldier trains alongside Bella.
Bella here, she's 9.5 years old, so she's starting to get close to retirement age. She's been my main leader for years, so she's the one who's kind of helping teach Soldier how to take her place, basically. I think Bella knows that Soldier is being taught, so she'll kind of guide him around. When I started running Soldier and lead, he didn't know any of the commands, but Bella would be right next to him. So if I gave a command, Bella would pull him whatever direction.
Jenny has scheduled a few training sessions. The date of the race is fast approaching, and her team must be ready. The young musher wants to prove to everyone that Soldier is up for the challenge. In the mountains overlooking the village of Two Dot, Rick and Harrison continue in search of elk. So far, no luck finding the animals that hide in the forested mountain, but they hope this new day of tracking will finally bring them the results they've waited days for.
We'll be working up this thing too. There's 100 head right in front of us. We're gonna just let them walk off of this hill before we move again.
The cold has driven 100 elk out of their hiding place. The rest of the herd must not be very far. The temperature is 30 below. The hunters are equipped to withstand the cold, but only carry the bare minimum to climb the mountain. Heavy bags could slow their approach and their chance to locate the herd.
We head right up this draw.
Yeah.
Where those elk were coming in, they should get in that timber and cut back down. But if we go up here and we'll cut tracks, then it's going to be really close in the timber.
Yeah.
But wind's right in our face. But I would think out of 100 elk, we ought to be able to bump into a couple in there.
I would hope so. And if nothing else, we get up there and hopefully at least push them back down where we can get at them again, you know.
Rick and Harrison will try to access the forest at the top of the mountain. This is probably where the elk are hiding.
You see that bench up there in the timber? I don't think we want to get above it. No. Just hang down through there.
The hunters arrive at the edge of the forest. From now on, their visibility will be very poor, and they can run into the animals at any time.
We just head right up into this little pocket here. When we cut them tracks, we'll see what they did.
The goal is to patiently follow the elk tracks to determine the direction of their movements, all without being spotted. 3 hours have passed since the hunt began. The animals should be close. But for now, Rick and Harrison have not managed to see them.
You see anything? I can't see much through the tops of them trees. Can you go out to the far edge? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can go this way and look down. I've got a pretty good idea that we've jumped these elk here. They're moving pretty hard down through this timber. So we're gonna take and just kind of work down in behind them, just take our time. And it's just kind of a cat and mouse game in this timber, but walk a little and look a little and walk a little, because these elk will get down in here, then they'll start bedding down and just lay under trees here. So we have a little better chance, we have a little more time of getting onto them when we're in the timber, because they feel a little more secure in this deep timber. When you get too close to their comfort zone, they'll blow out of here like a hurricane. But if you just go slow and easy, you usually have time to find one and get an open shot. We're about fucking busted. How far away? 400. Laying down. Straight across this draw from me. Just sit for a minute. It's a bull looking at us, I think. I think it's a cow blower. There's one above it laying down. Harrison went over here on this point. We spotted another bunch of elk about a mile down the ridge, right into the timber. He's gonna see if they're still there.
Harrison tries to follow the tracks of the small herd inside the forest. But the animals they glimpsed at the edge of the wood seem to have vanished. Despite the hunter's best efforts, the elk must have spotted them and fled. It's a rare failure for Rick and Harrison. This hunt for elk tests every ounce of the men's patience, but they still want to have the last word. Tomorrow, they'll return to this area because they know now that the herd is there somewhere in these snowy mountains. In the Big Hole Valley, trapper Scott Olson discovered a beaver killed by an otter at the river's edge and decided to harvest some pieces.
I'd like that animal not to have died in vain.
These beaver remains gave him the idea to create objects that he can sell to his customers for a good price. He wants to make a very special necklace inspired by those worn by some Indian tribes in Montana.
The Indians referred to these things as medicine bags. It held parts of animals, parts of things that they had found, a shiny rock, a piece of flint, a claw, something that was special to them. I had this idea of making it in the shape of a beaver and using pieces of this beaver to make that fetish so that it would be like a beaver medicine bundle. It would remind you of how precious life is and how fast it can be taken.
Scott is known throughout Montana as one of the few artisans to use the same techniques as the Indians who occupied this area before the pioneers arrived. He finds all his materials in nature.
Sinew is the back strap off of the back of the animal, or the legs. It is basically tendon, and it has hide glue on it. That's what gives it that kind of amber color. There's glue that holds those fibers together. When you take off the fibers by pounding it, you'll get individual little fibers that you use as thread. And because they're brittle, stiff, you have to wet them down. And by putting them in your mouth, it causes the glue to get soft and become limp. Then you can sew with it, and then as it dries, it cinches down tight. The sinew beadwork stays for centuries because it has that glue in it. This is definitely the harder method, but the more durable method. Ooh, that's brittle. That's brittle. Let's go with this one. The outline for the bag was done with buckskin, tanned with brains, sewed together with the tendons of animals, the sinew, so it cinches down and holds it tight. Decorated with the claws of the animal, with trade beads from the early 1800s. And there's buffalo hair put inside that charm to give it some base and to tie it back into Mother Earth.
A fetish necklace in the shape of a beaver. And another with the animal's teeth. Scott knows how to make the most of the remains.
It becomes worth $150 to $200. It's totally original. The whole circle of life that you see in the woods, where one animal dies, another animal feasts on it. This whole idea of taking something and making something from it is nothing's wasted.
Tonight, Scott has honored the Indian traditions. Soon, the necklaces he's made will be bought by one of his clients. They are lasting witnesses of the life of this young beaver that perished in the Big Hole Valley. In the city of Great Falls, Henry Hollenbeck prepares for the first round of finals in the Great Rodeo Weekend. The first event will be the steer wrestling, where each champion faces down a steer. In the finals last year, Henry's fast-moving steer made him bungle the jump.
Last year, the steer wrestling, the steers really run hard, and you just had to be on go. My first one, I was real hesitant. I got caught waiting, and it burned me to the back end, is what we call it in rodeo terms. Got roasted.
Tonight, the steers are stirring up trouble for the champions. They are defeated one after the other. Henry waits for his turn. And this year, he's determined not to fail.
I think he was mentally prepared this year because of what happened last year.
You do recognize what else is going on, but it's still between you and beast, and you got to do your job. There was a lot of people that missed. One guy would get outrun, one guy, his horse wouldn't cooperate. And those, you just got to recognize them, but you got to stay focused on what you're going to do.
Henry's up. The champion can throw his horse only when the steer has crossed the starting line. He has just a few hundredths of a second to go into action. If he leaves his horse too far in advance, he'll never catch up with him.
I had a nice, honest run in the steer wrestling, It wasn't super fast. I think it was like a 5 or 6 second run, and it was just a nice run to get under your belt, and then you can build off of it.
The final starts well for Henry. He's 4th in the first round, but remains in the lead thanks to points he's accumulated during the regular season. He still has 2 rounds to keep his hold on first place and become the category champion. At Paradise Valley, north of Yellowstone National Park, Jenny Rodewig arrives with her dogs. It's the last chance for training before the legendary Race to the Sky, which starts in 15 days. At the beginning of winter, Jenny has already won a 20-mile race. Now she wants to see how Soldier, the young leader of her team, will perform on a long run 6 months after his hip operation.
2 weeks before a big event, I like to do my biggest, kind of longest, hardest training run. For Race to the Sky, we're not doing a 20-mile race, we're doing a 100-mile race. And so we're working our way up towards that in training, and I want him up there in lead so I can see how he handles that and if he's gonna be able to handle running in lead for a 100-mile race.
Jenny chose the Mill Creek Trail, one of her favorite training grounds, and especially demanding for her dogs.
It has a lot of elevation and climbing in it, and it's pretty much all climbing the whole way out.
On the trek, the link between the musher and her team rests entirely on the shoulders of the 2 leaders at the front.
To be a good lead dog, they have to really be able to focus and also be able to listen to my commands and want to please. So it's up to him to be able to focus, stay on the trail, not run off after a rabbit, and to listen to my commands, when to turn, where to find the trail. They just have to have that confidence to lead a team of dogs through any conditions, basically.
After 6 hours on the track, the dogs are launched at a brisk pace on a long, straight course. The sled reaches 15 miles per hour.
Towards the end of that run, where everything was going really well and I was feeling really good about everything, Soldier, I don't know if he saw an animal or something on the side of the trail or what, he decided to turn down this nasty little trail that I usually don't ever think of going on. I think he caught Bella off guard and just drug her down there. And he did so quickly, I didn't have time to stop before we were headed down that trail. The sled tipped over and I lost control. And if the sled is not upright, the brake does not work at all.
Whoa! No! Whoa!
When the sled tips over like that, it's no problem for such a powerful dog team to just drag me right through the snow.
Woo! No! No! Woo! 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 Woo!
After several attempts, Jenny manages to straighten the sled and bring the dogs back to the main track. But at the front, Soldier's position is not normal.
He was running on the right side, and then somehow he was up on the left side, and he had this line through his leg. You know, I can't see what happened exactly and how he got onto the other side. So I'm hoping he didn't, like, fall or get rolled under Bella or something. But I was able to get back up onto the main trail, so hopefully things are okay now.
It's impossible for Jenny to know if Soldier's prosthesis was moved or damaged in the accident. And 2 weeks into the race, she can't afford to take the slightest risk. She'll have to get Soldier to a vet for an examination. In the mountains overlooking Two Dot Village, after their hunt from the day before, Rick and Harrison head to where they located part of the herd. Their past few days of failure have proved one thing. The elk are on their guard. To maximize their chances of catching any fleeing animals, the two hunters will split up.
Since we've got the elk up here on the ridge, and you're wanting to go down and get on the toe of the ridge and come up to them?
Yeah, I'm gonna go try to get on the other side of that hill.
Just come up the backside there?
Backside of it. Maybe if you go up by them cottonwoods or something.
All right.
And hang out there. Give me 20 minutes or so. They'll either see me and go to you, or see you and go to me.
Right.
So
Harrison went up to peek over the ridge into the pocket where the one bunch of elk had been, and I was going to stay in an ambush position so that if they did come around the end of the ridge, I could possibly get in a position to get a shot.
Just going straight for those trees. They're behind the hills. They can't see us coming, so we'll be okay. Unless they come around the corner and bust us. But for right now, we're good. I think we ought to hustle up that way. Wind's not perfect, but I think we can make it work. We're a lot closer. We still probably got like 1,000 yards to go, but it's working nicely. I'm not sure how far they are. I'm gonna try to get up to where I can see them a little better and figure out how I'm gonna do this. About 20 of them started coming out of them trees.
It was probably 700 yards, I would guess, but since I was above them and there was no wind or anything to worry about, I felt pretty confident on taking a shot. So belly crawled up to the edge where I could see, and so cold I couldn't even feel my hands. I couldn't feel my finger on the trigger. When I finally did shoot, it was a clean mess.
We're gonna catch them on top of the hill.
That shot got everything standing up, and there must have been probably 700 altogether between the ones below and the ones over here and the ones that I couldn't see in that bowl of that ridge.
Holy shit. Look at on the hill.
They all kind of came together on top of that ridge and went way out, right above a cliff, and then all flowed down into that basin to the north of us.
I want to hustle up to the top of this ridge and see if I can cut them off before they get up here.
Regardless of his efforts to try to cut off the herd, Harrison has to face the facts. The elk are too fast, and the night will fall too soon. It's time to go back to camp. But despite their failure, their strategy nearly worked. Tomorrow, they will try again, and maybe their patience will reward them. Meanwhile, Jenny travels to Bozeman, one of Montana's major cities. After the accident from the day before, she's bringing Soldier to her veterinarian.
No! No! Hey! No! Woo! No!
The sled tipped over and I lost control.
He had this line through his leg. I'm hoping he didn't fall.
The legendary Race to the Sky, Montana's largest sled dog race, is 2 weeks away. And for the first time, Soldier will lead the pack on the long race.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jenny. What happened?
Well, we were training yesterday, and either him or Bella decided to take this other trail, and there was a bunch of fresh snow, and they just dove off the trail, basically. And they were just kind of jumping through the deep snow. And I usually run him on the right side all the time because I want that hip on that side. And by the time I got up and figured out what was going on and got back up on the trail, he was over on the left side. And I just want to make sure
that
everything's okay.
Let's just take a quick peek here. So far, so good. Good flexion. We can always take an x-ray and find out, make sure that it's still, the implant is still solid, which is what we would like.
Yeah, I'd rather know, you know, especially this close to the race.
Right, right.
The operation took place 6 months ago, and since a hip prosthesis has never been placed in a sled dog, veterinarians don't know if the prosthesis can withstand such strain.
Okay, well, there he is. The anchoring point is looking very nice. I don't see any type of looseness around that socket. The ball is still well within here, and I'm not seeing any kind of small fracture or anything like that that would tell me that he was having some problems. So I think he should be cleared to go to race, certainly, as long as he's running well now for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It means a lot to me.
Oh, you're
very reassuring to
Yeah.
actually see it.
Fortunately, Soldier was more frightened than injured. And despite this scare, Jenny is determined to start the race and to prove that the young dog can lead this pack against the best sled dogs in the United States.